My name is John Passfield. I'm going to read from my Pompeii novel in a moment. This is video 5, Pliny, Love Denied, question mark. So Pliny thinks about his life. Pliny reflects on his life might be a good subtitle for this video. Here's the book, Pompeii, Vesuvius Dominus, a novel by John Passfield. The visual is by James Wright, an English painter of the 1770s. Here's a summary from the back of the novel, as printed. On the afternoon of AD 79, a white cloud appears above Mount Vesuvius and begins to deposit a layer of ash on the nearby town of Pompeii. Gradually, the people of Pompeii become aware that an awesomely destructive force has unleashed its full fury against the lives that they have established in their community. As they are swept up in the destructive experience, 3 people consider the premises by which they have been living their lives. Well, that's the topic of this video. How have I lived my life up till now? And what can I do or should I do to make it different? In this case, if I survive this disaster. So I'm focusing on Pliny of the 3. The 3 are Pliny the Elder, who's Pliny's uncle and guardian, who has control of his life in almost every aspect. Pliny, the 17-year-old nephew, and Julia, the 17-year-old girl with whom Pliny fell in love the summer before. So it's a Romeo and Juliet story. The 2 are 17, as I mentioned. They had a summer love affair in AD 78. In AD 79, as this white ash starts to drift down on the town of Pompeii, they're being kept separate. They're forbidden to see each other because their 2 elders are going to find other marriages for them and other political deals that these marriages will help to solidify. The surround is the volcano and the town. The eruption is happening as they think. So each chapter then has a character. This is Pliny reacting to the explosion of the volcano and thinking about his life as he goes along. The story, just in summary, 2 powerful Romans, as I mentioned. The uncle is a navy man, Pliny's uncle. Her father's an army man. The 2 17-year-olds were thrust together to cement a political deal that was being negotiated. They fell in love, which is nice. The deal went sour, which is unfortunate, and they were forbidden to see each other. So both remember the last summer, AD 78, the summer of their love, during the events of AD 79. So this, as I said, will concentrate on Pliny. There are 4 sections in each chapter. Pliny has 6 chapters, but I will only read from 4 of them, again, to keep the video to a certain length. Let me go to page 8 here in the novel to start this off. So Pliny is at Messina, across the bay from Pompeii, where his uncle is in charge of the naval depot. And he sees a white cloud in the sky above Pompeii. And he tells his uncle that he'd rather not go over. Surely not much is happening over there. Just a white cloud above Vesuvius, and they've had mild earthquakes before. His uncle is very interested, so the uncle goes. And Pliny stays behind, and he says to himself, this is lower down in his mind, I'd rather be shivering on guard duty against barbarians in the furthest outposts of Britain than to spend my time even thinking about Pompeii. And trying not to think about Pompeii, of course, he does. I've had enough of Pompeii to last a lifetime. Julie and I explored every inch of the town together last summer. I don't want to be reminded of those days. If I were to meet Julie in future, say at some formal event in Rome, I wouldn't want her to hug me for what might have been. Uncle says that the future's all that matters, and I agree. Uncle's plan for me is a good one. He's dedicating his life to helping me. He sees me as the coming man of Rome. Well, it's the struggle not to love Julia, to try not to even remember her, and the struggle to accept his uncle Pliny the Elder's plans for him. And we'll find out more about that as his thoughts go on. Page 10. There is no one who has influenced me more than Livy. That's Livy the historian. I've spent hours poring over his history of Rome. Livy has taught me more than anyone else ever has. And what was Julia's mother's role in the situation? She seemed to encourage Julia and I when we were together. Could she have been part of a plot to deceive Julia and I all along? My uncle is a very admirable man. As a model, his life is exemplary. Every fiber of his being is employed in service to Rome. So I think it's true in every piece of serious literature that the main character's task, one of them, is to figure out the other characters, to evaluate the other characters as forces in the main character's life. So, what about Julia's mother? What was her role in that situation last summer where we fell in love and the mother seemed to encourage us and then the romance ended? What about my uncle? My uncle is an exemplary role model, but let me think about him a bit. Should I take his advice for my future or not? Assuming he has any choice. Page 11. I've heard that Britain is not so terrible as a place to serve. It's far away from Pompeii and Rome, that's for sure. I would never see Julia there, nor Regulus either. Well, Regulus seems to be the young boy, another young Roman boy, with a powerful father, who might be Julia's future husband. Another deal is in the works for Julia's father. I'm beginning to develop an interest in the law. I don't think Uncle would approve. I hesitate to raise the topic in our talks. Last summer I took to making sketches of a house that someday I'd like to build. It is the house in which I pictured Julia and me. When things changed, I almost threw the sketches away. I don't know what to make of Regulus. Presumably he sees himself as a future leader of Rome. I assume that the proposed marriage to Julia is an aid of furthering that cause. Julia's father is a difficult man to get to know. He barely spoke to me all the time my uncle was negotiating with him. I never got to know what kind of man he actually is. I couldn't help laughing the first time I met Julia. I looked at the cupids and I looked at her. And she was standing in the doorway, and then I looked back at the cupids once again. I saw an omen in those cupids on Father's walls. So his mind is in turmoil going over all these events and actions and images, really, images that he has to evaluate as forces in his mind. Leaving out an awful lot, let's go to chapter 10, which is Pliny 3, and page 80. Leaving out all, of course, the destruction of the town, which isn't our topic right now. Leaving out even the thoughts that are on our topic, just to keep the video to a reasonable length. Awakened with a shock is the action. Are the walls swaying, or is it a dream I'm having? So things are getting worse in Misenum, where he's stationed. But thoughts of Julia as well. How can she enjoy life in Pompeii? How can she cheerfully prepare for a wedding with one who is so inscrutable, this Regulus character? Does she not live underneath the same cloud that has formed over me? Like, has she forgotten me so easily when I can't forget her? And then thoughts of Pompeii, the town that he doesn't want to think about. The paintings on the walls of people's houses, the statues in the gardens, and the mosaics on the floors. These are the things I loved about Pompeii. I wonder whether Julia and her parents ever come to Misenum. Surely there's no reason which would bring them to a little town with a naval base. Nevertheless, I keep feeling Julia's eyes on my back. Uncle took me in when my father died. I would have nothing without his generosity. How ungrateful I would be if I failed to realize the potential that he sees in me. So it's kind of a battle in his mind between the force of Julia and the force of his uncle. Which is the stronger? Which is the more trustworthy? On what rock should he build his future, if he had a choice? Page 82. Livy was neither involved in the military nor was he a politician. Livy ate, slept, bathed, exercised, and read his way through the days, all the while observing the lessons that he felt were embedded in the history of Rome. When he had studied his subject sufficiently, he sat and he wrote. Julia's father is a blustering man. He is volatile and prone to ranting and bellowing when his sycophants do not bow down low enough, as he thunders along like a bear in his lumbering way. But I wonder whether he's subtle enough to be capable of orchestrating a long-range strategy of deceit. My uncle's greatest work has been the writing of a book which he calls a natural history. 37 volumes of extremely interesting lore, learned, comprehensive, and as full of variety as nature herself. So examining all these older people, an historian, Julia's father, his uncle, just trying to size them up. Who do you emulate in your life? Who do you not trust? Who do you blame for what has gone wrong? Who has your best interests at heart? Page 84. They say that even on clear days, the British sun is only to be seen for 3 or 4 hours. They say that Londinium is a very rustic provincial town. Perhaps Britain's only advantage is that it would be so far away. The law, the law, the law. The forbidden topic, the forbidden interest. There's absolutely nothing that I could say that would change my uncle's mind. The house would be nestled on a hillside facing south. From midday onward, the sun would shine in the colonnade. Julia made a number of suggestions, which I sketched and planned. Then on page 85, I have a terrible feeling that Julia's life will be one of misery. I don't believe that she will thrive with Regulus at all. Of course, I'm biased, but that is the way that I feel. How could a father barter his daughter on the open market? How could a father sell his daughter as if she were a common slave? How could Julia have such a high regard for such a man? I always enjoyed it when Julia and I spent time at her father's townhouse in Pompeii. We used to laugh at the cupids as they frolicked and gambled and winked. We would chuckle and wonder which of us was which. And then moving on, again, leaving a lot out, I'm going to find page 158 here. It's in here somewhere. Here it is. Pliny again. The scenes on the walls and the floors of the house, the figures on the altars and the chanting of the priests, the sights and sounds that we shared last summer in Pompeii. So this town that he loved, and he loved it along with loving Julia, and he's banished from meeting Julia by others, and he's banished himself from Pompeii just because it's so painful to think about it. It will be a cold, cold winter next year when I'm in Rome. Every event of any importance will include Julia and her new husband. I'll just die when I see her with Regulus at her side. Uncle has suffered a minor setback. Julia's father has dug his own grave. Of the two of them, it is my uncle who will triumph in the end. Page 160. My uncle leads a life of thought and of action. Livy lived a life of thought alone. I'll have to talk to my uncle before too long. Surely Julia is as much a victim as I have been. She is a victim of nothing more than loyalty to her family. She's no more to be blamed for misfortune than am I. For all his accomplishments, I'm not sure that my uncle truly knows himself. If I were asked in what aspect of his life does your uncle most approach his ideal self, I would not say that it is as the admiral of the fleet, though he's excellent in that capacity, nor as a forceful advocate of the Navy with the Roman Senate, though he's quite capable in that role. I would say that my uncle is most himself when he pursues his keen interest in natural history. So we evaluate our elders, and we don't necessarily see them as always having chosen the right path for their own lives or always knowing the right path for our lives. At the same time, being a young Roman at that time, he doesn't really have a lot of choice, but I think people were just as human then as they are now. They certainly had lots of thoughts, even though they couldn't speak them openly and often couldn't act on them. And here's Pliny reevaluating just about everything in his life. Page 161. When I come back from Britain, I could have a long talk with Uncle. I could insist upon my interest in the law. Perhaps by then, if the threat to the Navy is not as acute as it seems to be at present, he would be willing to listen to what I have to say. Perhaps I will get up the courage. Perhaps I will broach the topic of the law with Uncle sometime. Though if he should turn his back on me, I'd be devastated. I haven't thought of the plan for the house in Tuscany for at least a year now. I could be living in Britain for quite a while. I left the sketches in the bottom of a drawer. So plans for your future that you just can't forget and can't really scrap, I guess you could say. 163. I don't trust Regulus or his father. I don't believe that one can trust either of them at all. Julia's life of misery will begin on her wedding day. I have never let myself fantasize. I have never let myself daydream that what I would like to see is what I actually see. Do I dare to hope that Julia's father will come to his senses soon and avoid such a terrible mistake? I regret the day that Julia and I met in the cold, miserable drizzle of that street in Rome. It was the coldest day of the winter and the coldest year. We should have found a place of warmth and sat and talked. So regrets. Let's go to page 200 here. In a memory. Sometimes all we have is memories of these relationships that go wrong for whatever reason. There was a moment that was just about perfect. It was one of those times when my uncle and I were visiting the townhouse of Julia's father in Pompeii. It was not the occasion of a feast of any particularly major event, not a milestone or a date by which to begin to measure time. There were just the five of us there: Julia's father, Julia's mother, my uncle, and Julia and me. We each had a glass of wine from my uncle's vineyard at Comum, actually, and we'd all poured out our libations to the household gods. And then we sat and listened to a poet, a gruff old fellow, dim-eyed and battered like a tomcat, who strummed on a lyre and sang old stories in a soulful voice. And there was a moment when I looked at Julia, and she looked at me, and we both knew that there was something between the two of us, whatever it was, that was never going to die. That's the house with all the cupids on the walls. And then some remembered dialogue from that summer of AD 78. You think that our story will turn out all right? At the moment, I find it very hard to say. I think it will. In fact, I'm sure it will. So those are Pliny's thoughts as he's, of course, undergoing this eruption. He's not in Pompeii, he's in Messina, but they had a mild earthquake there, and the cloud, of course, whatever goes up, that white cloud, has to come down, and it came down and made it totally dark in Messina as well. So Pliny survived, Pliny the Younger, and is the one who made the first historical record of the destruction of Pompeii. And there is a gap in his story that allowed me to fit Julia in as a possible future wife. If Julia survives, we know Pliny survived. If Pliny's uncle survives, you can look that up historically. If Julia's father survives, that's fictional. If there's a change of mind or a change of circumstances, maybe the two were able to marry, but I'll just leave it at that. In a moment, I'll read from my notes and make a conclusion. And now I'll read from my notes, and I'll tell you how you can access these notes in a moment for free. The thrill of walking the streets of Pompeii was one of the most visceral experiences of my life because, although it is not a living, working, playing city, it is frozen in time and action to the point where one feels a connection with the everyday life of the past, which is even more direct than the phenomenon of modern car parks and paved streets, which accompany many European architectural holdovers from the past. It was myself, my family, and our fellow tourists who supplied the everyday walking, talking, and breathing present in Pompeii. And it was the ambience of the ancient buildings, water fountains, street stores, and temples which provided a sense of life present and life past interfusing, which is the point of balance which I seek in attempting to negotiate mentally between the past and the present. And then another passage which follows along with these same ideas, past and present interacting. Why bother to seek a mental balance between a sense of the past and a sense of the present? If one of the points about the past-present balance is that the ancient peoples were just like us, why not forget about them and just concentrate on what it is like to be alive at the present moment? If the Pompeians purchased fast food and gulped it in a hurry as they rushed along the streets to the gymnasium for a workout, to school for lectures, to the temple for observances, and to the forum for legal, political, or commercial business, why not let the past be forgotten in the assurance that the people of the past were just like us? That there's no need to balance two such similar entities. Well, I think that the answer is that we are poised between two concepts in our own time. The aspect of the present which is ephemeral and passing, and that aspect of the present which is of great import for us because it is essential to our being. And it is the task of each of us not to banish the present ephemeral from our lives, but to seek a healthy balance between what is important and less important, what is deeply human and frivolously human, what is trendily important for our time, and what is deeply important for our time, and therefore for all time. So the novel is available on Amazon. Here it is, Pompeii, Vesuvius Dominus, a novel by John Passfield. If you go to my website, which is johnpassfield.ca, johnpassfield.ca, there are two free books that you can access, both book length. One is a planning notebook, which I kept while I planned, researched, wrote this novel. The other is a journal on which I reflect on many, many things. How to write a novel is one, or aspects of the novel, I guess I should say. But also Pompeii, this idea of personal lives being lived among family, friends, and a smaller social unit such as a town. And then it's big events that could be man-made or could be natural that come and just threaten to sweep everything away, and sometimes do. So both those books are available. You just go up to the top to notebooks or journals, click on those, go down to the icon and click on those. There it is on the screen, and free, no money required or asked for. Lastly, thank you for watching this video.